Welcome to Old Guy Tech,
the OGT.TV recording studio.
Technology for the rest of us.
And here we are. This is Rob Cherney and John Manajastic, and Jonathan Cherney is producer on the floor for Opinion versus Opinion for July 24th, 2013. So thank you all for watching. A few of you are there. One of these days we'll get a big audience with a big checkbook, but I want to thank you, anybody who is ever watching, even if it's family at this point. Thank you.
Well, two of them are you and one's Heather, and the fourth one is...
my friend Bob. I wonder if Bob's going to watch today or not. I don't know.
I better Bob should call.
Bob used to be a great caller. Yeah, let's. I'll tell you, we got some really interesting stuff going on in this world here of ours. And one of the things, if you bothered to turn on CNN or MSNBC or just about any of the talking heads, our president was on twice, talking up, of course, Obamacare. Over and over and over and over and over and over and over. So after about the third time, I couldn't listen to it anymore. And it's one of these things where John and I kind of have said the last couple things. You know what? It passed. It's done. Let's move on. But apparently, this dead horse doesn't seem to want to go away.
Whoa. You got a couple of things here. I saw somebody post something on Facebook today that was a total piece of misinformation from, sourced but not dated, okay, opposing Obamacare. There is a large portion of the population that thinks it's been repealed, because the Congress has tried to repeal it 39 times, and that always hits the news. The fact of the matter is, number one, he's drawing the line in the sand. He said today, I'm not going to fight over the debt limit. I'm not, that these are up, and the Congress is saying, well, we can't repeal it, but we'll find a way to unfund it. The fact of the matter is that the exchange is open in October, which is not that far away. That's 3 months away. As a PR and marketing guy, I'd be banging it pretty heavy.
Yeah, well, and that's what he's doing. I'm not taking that away from the guy. I'm not taking anything of it. It's like I said, I'm kind of just fed up with the whole thing and just say, hey, you know what? It's done. Let's move on. Let's talk about jobs. And that was, good for him, was one of the things that he also talked about today. But along with that, and thank God that he is talking about jobs, because that really is, like you and I have said, this is what we've got to talk about. This is what we got to work.
But when Boehner walks out and says, I've been talking about jobs, and I'm going, bullshit. When have you talked about jobs and making jobs? Talk about cut the budget. You talk about don't spend any money. You don't talk about the jobs that are being lost to the sequester. And you guys want to tighten it even tighter? Come on.
There is a point. If we step up and finally start paying off some of our debt, we've got a situation.
We've been paying off our debt. Our deficit of payments has been reducing, I think, for the last 7 or 8 months. Or longer.
By the time you add in an inflation and interest, it really isn't going anywhere.
Brother, it's going down more than it was during the Bush administration.
But this is not the Bush administration. This is the Obama administration. It's a different situation altogether.
There was a small economic event in 2008. Is the lack of historical background that weak? I mean, this country was as close to failing as it was in 1929.
Oh, we got Michigan and Detroit willing to go up in flames already, so not much has changed.
You have Michigan going up in flames, you have Detroit going up in flames.
That's right, we have Detroit going up in flames.
Not the car companies. Detroit is failing.
Detroit is...
And they're directly, and I will argue that point both ways. The problem with Detroit is the same problem that LA has and the same problem that California has, is that when we were flush, We gave the unions everything they wanted, gave employees everything they wanted, and elegant retirement plans. I mean, some of this goes back to the days when I was selling life insurance with a 10% return on investment function. Mm-hmm. And we put in some very lovely retirement plans, etc.
Yeah, but 10%. When you got that 10%, what was margin? What were mortgage rates at, John? What were mortgage rates at that same period of time?
Say it again, please.
What was your mortgage rate at the same period of time when you were talking about a 10% return?
Oh, gosh.
7, 8?
In
7, 8, 9?
8s.
Yeah, okay. So, again, you extrapolate those figures out. There's no doubt about the fact that we were spending like drunken sailors. And I think we've continued not only through the Bush administration, but the Obama administration, too. So the question is the spending
the Clinton
really...
administration we spent like sailors, though we ended up with a surplus.
Yeah, well, I don't know what that has to do with it, but we've got, anyway. I've got some things here. This is very interesting, and I printed this out because I just thought you would love these, because this will give us a few things to yell at each other about for a moment.
Okay.
Nicholas Wapsot, that's an interesting name. He's from Reuters, and he put out his 20 points. We're going to love some of these. 20 points of how to get the country back on its feet. And you're going to love some of these. Let's just start, because this one's really good. Let's start sharp cuts in defense spending. Reduce it by $100 billion. What do you think? Good or bad?
We've already done that in the sequester.
And how are we going to... You're absolutely right, because how much more can we cut the defense spending before the point... all right, here's the other object. Why the hell aren't we out of Afghanistan? And, I heard the best piece of news I've heard in a long time. Obama stopped the sale of 8 F-16s to the Muslim Brotherhood. He said, let's put it on hold and think about this for a moment. He actually did that.
I know you find it nonplussed that somebody in the administration and possibly the president did something bright.
Because I'm not going to give him credit for coming up with that. I'm going to give his military advisors waving their hands saying,
of course you are.
All right?
He didn't get bin Laden either. He didn't have anything to do with that.
Well,
there was no
he was in the room.
There was no presidential leadership or courage on that.
No.
It was the SEALs, and he didn't care about them anyway. And I mean, end of argument.
Did you read
all about
Kevin Kyle's book?
22 points are just 22 points more of somebody's political point of view and non-action.
Well, with his poll ratings down about as low as it's ever been, it started in the week somewhere about 45%.
Well, that Congress is at 12%.
Who cares about Congress? Has always been low. I mean, since when is Congress?
Congress was not always low.
Except for during September 11th. During that whole situation, that was the only time Congress has been about as low on the totem pole as you can get.
It wasn't 12%.
Obama's
at the same point as Bush was in the beginning of his second term.
Yeah. As
the economy started to crunch.
And then we've got the problem again with the lame duck president, and he just runs amok. And actually, this president, I don't have a problem with that because he spends more time golfing. He's spending more time golfing and playing on that 747 of his and taking his golfing trips and going to Hawaii more than any other president in the history.
No, back that up with a fact.
It is a fact. It is a fact. It's not a blatant lie. Not even close.
Give me some numbers.
He spends. Well, fine. I'll tell you what. I'll come back with the numbers next week, and then I'll show you. It is proof. It is proof that he has used that airplane.
Played golf. That was the photo op for Eisenhower.
God, you're just so blind to this, man. Unreal. Jeez.
He's running around taking vacations, spending money.
He's bringing up $1 million in fuel an hour just to fly around, man.
No, you're listening.
All right. Let's talk. I'll tell you what, because the next thing I want to talk about. I want to talk to you. I was just talking about fuel. That's just to put it in the goddamn gas tanks. I don't care about anything else. Let's do this. Let's talk about the farm bill. I'll tell you what. I got another one for you. What about this pork-barreled farm bill that's thrown in here that nobody ever wants to touch? That's the sacred cow. And who does that benefit? All the benefits are the big, rich corporations. Sure doesn't benefit the mom and pop farms, does it?
Well, except for the food stamp part, where that advantages all kinds of people that don't have the money to buy enough food.
You know, I think at this stage in time in our country, we should not have people going hungry.
When they're members of the military, I want food stamps. I want them to have enough food.
Yeah, even if they're not to a certain degree, I don't want anybody starving. So, and we grow plenty of food. We export a huge percentage.
Because the problem is, it's just like the example of the Wal-Mart that costs us $900 million a year, because the people that work there don't make enough money to feed, clothes, house it at minimum wage.
You know, there's a stark difference between, and this is kind of interesting. A couple people have pointed this out to me. Go into a Walmart and do the shopping and talk to the Walmart people, and then go into a Target store and talk to the people that are working in a Target store. And the wage per hour rate is somewhere about $3 to $4 more an hour for the Target employees. And there's a huge difference in atmosphere.
Right.
You know, you walk into these Walmarts and you feel like these people are scared to death to say anything, look anything. I mean, I think it's management by intimidation. And I agree with you. You know, you got to pay people at least enough that they can feed themselves and put a roof over their head.
Who is basically in the same business that pays its people well and
does well
and make sure they have benefits. It's possible to do, but you also look at the size of Costco as a corporation, and look at the size of Walmart.
Right.
I mean, Walmart is a market bully on both ends.
Well,
big box stores hurt.
So the argument on the conservative side, they're, hey, we're putting people to work. We're moving products. We're helping everything that we possibly help with Walmart. So you got the one side, you got the frou-frou nice side of Walmart, and then we know that there's a dark side in Walmart, and it hit us locally. One of the representatives, or I don't know exactly what they call them at Walmart, one of their workers, one of their employees from our local store in El Dorado County went to the stockholders meeting that was being held to speak for all the employees about the wage situation. Okay, and she said, and she explained just like you did. She was very eloquent, I understand. I didn't hear it. I read about it. And, talking about trying to help these associates get a little more money, help them get off food stamps. It would help the country. Do all the things right that Walmart should do. When she got back, she found out that she was fired.
Having worked for Starbucks, it's not a whole lot different, my friends.
Really?
Except that they get a positive spin because they're Starbucks, and I don't understand why, but I mean, you're hired at just a little over California minimum wage. You get 30 hours a week mainly, probably depending on your manager and who you trade shifts with and all that kind of stuff. But the fact of the matter is, May, as a primary, it's a great job for a student. It's a great job for a retiree that has a pension.
Right.
It's a great second job because of the very flexible hours.
It's not going to be a main job. It's not going to be
30 hours a week and $80 a month for health insurance, and then you cannot afford. I mean, there were girls that worked in my store. I mean, young women with kids. They had a ride share because they couldn't all afford a car.
Right.
There were as many as 3 in an apartment.
Right.
Because they couldn't afford rent in a place that has such ridiculously cheap rents by comparison to other places in California. It's not worth talking about. It's all over the place, and a lot of the jobs, and this is you can go after Obama for this, but a lot of the jobs. I can also go after the Congress for this. The jobs that they're creating and bringing into the market are not jobs that are going to make viable taxpayers, middle-class people, out of these people that are entering the workforce. But they're the only jobs there are. That's why people at fast food are trying to go on strike in New York because it's just not enough.
No, it's not. Well, it's back to the whole situation of outsourcing. I mean, it's just we've gone way too far.
No. It's a matter of wage.
Well,
and
but what started the wage? The fact is, you need to have a skill of some type, right? You got to agree with me. You have to have a skill, and you have to have a need for that skill somewhere in the job sector. If those skilled labor don't have a place to go, then you don't have a working wage. All right.
Well,
so we've outsourced so much of this. We've sent it so much abroad that
why? Why didn't we train Americans to do it?
Exactly.
Is it too menial work? I mean,
no, I don't think so.
20 years ago, we trained the Philippines in the travel codes, so that for a very long time, most of the people that you would get to book your flight were in the Philippines, because we outsourced to a quote-unquote friend, the Philippines, and the Filipinos all learned the code was that conspiratorial? I don't know. It did bother me that we did that long ago.
Yeah. Well, I think that was a good start, wasn't it? And then kept on rolling.
You go to Network Solutions, and they'll go, hold on a minute, and they send you to India.
It's every business, everything that, every big major company does exactly what you're describing. There are some workarounds for it, but of course it costs you money. Let's take Dell.
The thing of it is also the difference between a generation like Jonathan's that doesn't know what value is, doesn't understand what customer service is, doesn't know what value added is, because anything that's outside of the ordinary, let's see, you got to pay for your bags, you got to pay for this, you got to pay for that. Everything that used to be, and we've talked about this, in the general package of the product or service that you bought is now, do you want to buy the continuing warranty plan?
Right. Jonathan?
Well, I think he's right to an extent, since, I've been a kid, you see things going away. You could always throw, luggage was included with this and that and things.
By the way, the airlines had their best year in forever.
Oh, sure, because what did they do? They did exactly what government does. They add fees. We're going to fee everything. We're going to fee if you're over a pound. We're going to fee if you weigh 300 pounds. We're going to fee this. We're going to fee that. And that's exactly what government is doing, because they're kind of trying to hide. And when I say government, most of it's local, but it broadens out. Most of them don't want to say that ugly T word, being taxes, so they hide it as a fee. And I can demonstrate that in many counties just within California.
No. Fee, and especially in California.
Yeah.
Tax is a dirty word, so fee became the alternative.
And the airlines ran with that, and of course they've had the best quarter they've had in many a long time.
You see, isn't this the point, though? This is where my political philosophy comes in. That's the government's job, is to look into things, and the government's guilty as anybody. I would say, okay, why do you need this fee? Why are you adding the burden to people who, you don't need to fly, but why?
Wait a minute.
To a certain extent, they had to okay the fee in the airlines anyway.
Well,
because
But the airlines are just one, because of the government control. Airlines is only one example. We're talking about even local government.
Well, I agree, and this is why I think government is in on it. But my political philosophy is government provides a framework so everything can work equally. Everybody in every business has the same chance of succeeding or failing.
I got some Kool-Aid for you.
The problem is that you have at least 3 levels of government. You've got local government, you've got state government. It's actually local government, county government, state government, federal government. Okay? And a lot of what these fees have come up to do, which precludes having a flat tax, okay, nationally. Because what they've done is there are all of these federal matching funds programs at schools, at whatever, and to generate the money, to get the federal money, the bigger piece of the chunk, they have to generate a certain amount of the money locally.
Right. Matching funds.
That is not the case with the beginning of Obama.
This is where the other part of the question is, I know a lot of people say, was it during the 70s or 80s when they capped out property taxes? A lot of people...
That was actually the late 60s.
Yeah.
Okay, well, a lot of people.
That was yeah.
A lot of people are saying that if you move that, then the government will have all the money they have, and they'll stop doing this and stop doing that, and they need to make it so the government can tax buildings, commercial, blah blah blah.
Well, but here's the issue. I mean, the issue goes all the way around. You're talking about Prop 14 in California
13.
And capping the
Prop 13.
Prop 13.
13.
Correct. 13. I'm sorry.
Get it right. You're going to yell at me. Get it right.
The Gann Amendment.
Howard Jarvis.
And Gann, but I know that Gann was in there as well.
Okay.
And that was stupid. I mean, because what happened is we as soon as we capped property
Coming
taxes,
from the mouth of a non-property owner.
correct.
All right. So I disagree so wholeheartedly. I think it was the best thing that ever happened to us as property owners.
It fueled unrealistic appreciation on property because you didn't have to pay for it.
Well, we just don't have to pay for it on an inflation.
Unrealistic appreciation on property. How does your property value? I mean,
Well,
is Santa Monica?
it did.
Because it's Santa Monica,
Oh yeah,
houses
and
in
I
New
took
York
advantage of
cost
that.
$1 million.
I mean, I made $500,000 in 5 years in Santa Monica. I mean, that was easy. You play a place and flip it. I mean, it was a piece of cake. We were there at the right time. Got out at the right time.
Right.
Yeah.
If you did, you did. If you stayed too long, in a place like that, you don't lose. I mean, those friends of ours that own a home in Santa Monica are pretty well set one way or the other.
Oh yeah.
But what I'm talking about is, and we spoke of this in the 60s, and when we did things, the top tax bracket was 70 and 80%.
Mm-hmm. Well, at one time, the top tax bracket was actually 99%, but that was for one person.
Right.
Yeah. So.
But I mean, in the Kennedy, in this Valhalla of rights and things and whatever, it was the very high and right now it's 37%.
Yeah.
Somebody came up and said that between their California and state taxes they paid 90%, and I had to look at them and say, you need a new accountant.
Well, you do, but if you do tie both together, it depends on how you do it. It's an accountant trick. You can play with it, but if we want to get into an accountant part of how much every citizen in the United States pays, if you look at it, we're almost the highest tax country in the world.
Yeah, and we get the least value.
Yeah, absolutely, because there's a tax on everything.
By the way,
yeah.
Australians do not have to provide any identification to register to vote.
Oh, you did look that up. Well, good for them.
I saw Wes on now. At the same hand, he hasn't been on the voter rolls since 1997, or made to vote because he somehow filed some document with the Australian government, even though he worked for them, that he lives in Anaheim.
Oh. Okay.
So I got so much more by asking that question. And he goes, "Yeah, I haven't had to vote, mate, since '97."
I'm living in Anaheim. I like that. All right, let's move along.
Howard Johnson's in Anaheim.
Okay, we'll move them on. Here's another idea. What about privatizing the Federal Aviation Administration? What do you think? Should we privatize it?
I don't see it as being it for profit. I do not get, you know me. I don't believe in privatization because it means profit, and if it has profit, it's just like public utilities. No.
Yeah, I know. We had that talk. Okay, well, supposedly, if we could find a way to privatize Federal Aviation Administration, which, like you, I have my reservations, it's an $11.8 billion savings.
Hey,
right.
It's a $40 billion savings, and this is, I don't know if you heard this one, that we will no longer have postal delivery to our doors.
Well, okay, so I looked into that one a little bit more, and it's actually not to the existing customers, it's all new build-out. So what they're saying is any new build-out of any kind, you build a housing development, whatever it may be, you're going to have communal, not boxes mixed together, but you're going to have a spot where everybody's going to have their mail into one location.
our dear friends that lived on the at the country club on the golf course in Bakersfield. That's the way their mail was done. Is not individual house delivery.
Right.
They've been doing this for a long time.
Yeah, it's nothing new. We've got it here, right on one of our streets where there's a whole group of homes. They've got a whole big thing of boxes that everybody's got. So it's not a new thing. And then a lot of people in the rural areas, of course, have P.O. boxes anyway. So this is not a new idea. I don't even know why it's okay. Fine, do it, go for it. I don't care because, as you know, paper is not flowing back and forth like it used to anymore,
and your signature can be done electronically.
Exactly.
It's
not what it was.
Not the requirement.
All right, let's stir them up. This is the big one. Here's the big one. Let's stir everybody up right now.
God.
Let's make marijuana legal and stop all this law enforcement waste of money enforcing the marijuana laws.
You know how I felt about that for a long time.
Well, the studies are saying we could save big macho money by
for what we
concentrating
spend on an anti-drug program that does not work. Tax it. I mean, come on. That's one libertarian idea. Make it legal and tax it.
Well, so is it a gateway drug? I mean, if we tax it, we put it out there.
I think you have to take a libertarian approach towards just about everything if you shake down the marijuana issue.
Okay.
You've got to say, hey, there are drugs available in society if you want to do them, and if you can do that, and you know as well as I do, we know people that were, blasted out of their brains that did some pretty amazing things.
Sure, absolutely.
And there were people that, slept on their parents' couch in the basement till they were 40.
Well, I guess the point is, in many of us our age, John's age, my age, Brian's age, Bruce's age,
the
whatever,
original hippies, the
60-ish is we grew up into a culture where it was everywhere, right? Somehow I never did see the absolute stoners, the crazy wacko stoners, going around shooting up banks and holding up 7-Eleven.
Well, even in the Trayvon thing, when Hannity comes across and says he'd been smoking pot that night,
yeah,
and the actual level of THC was trace. It was not that did not follow.
No, I don't think that had. It didn't have anything to do with it.
If people want to do drugs and destroy their life and be non-productive, that is their choice. It is also your and my choice to say that's fine, but you find a way to pay for it. Not on my dollar, okay? I don't want you on unemployment. I don't want you, and I'm a liberal. I don't want them to piss in the bottle, but on the other hand, maybe they need to piss in a bottle. I'm not going to suborn that behavior with my dollar.
I will say from my experience with the people I've known through my life who smoke weed, weed does two things. Make you watch horrible movies and have questionable taste in food. I've never seen anything bad happen with weed. I have seen it, though. I do believe on some people it is a gateway drug, because I do know people who went from doing that to dropping massive amounts of LSD.
Let me ask you a question then. Do you feel, because they experimented first, well, probably alcohol. I think we'd say that if there's anything that's a gateway drug, it's alcohol.
Because it's legal.
Yeah.
It's available.
And tobacco. Okay. You get the two legal gateway drugs right there, alcohol and tobacco, and then they go into marijuana, and they go, okay, well, I've gone this far, and I've survived. Let's try...
I think it
depends. It depends on how addictive your personality is.
Well,
it's definitely.
I know people that got high that said, "I don't want to get high."
Right.
It's definitely not like the old movie Reefer Madness. I do think it's a little bit of the forbidden fruit, because when you're a kid, smoking cigarettes and alcohol is bad. I think it comes down to lousy parenting and a good portion of it.
And it's got to do with self-image. I didn't touch alcohol, drugs, anything. I was absolutely sober until I graduated from high school.
Jeez.
And it was available.
Jeez.
Believe me.
I don't. I don't know about that one.
I'm calling the fib on that one.
Anyway,
No,
all right. So
I was stone sober all the way through.
here we go. So anyway, the talk is, and when you get into the drug talk, it's very interesting because I have the sheriff in here all the time, and I kind of went into it with him, and of course, law enforcement in general are automatically against it, and it's a cultural thing, and then it's also, people, because I'm like you, I'm going, my God, look at all the money we could be making. We make a huge amount of money in tobacco tax and alcohol tax, huge sums of money.
Well, here's the thing. If anybody, because law enforcement always sees the bad side of anything. If you're going to talk about food stamps, ask a cop, because they'll say, okay, this is why food stamps are bad or good. I think
it goes along with the homeless situation. It goes along with mental health.
It goes along with the fact that a bunch of bureaucrats and a bunch of people in a democracy decide how they want their society to be, and the cops have to clean up the mess.
Yeah.
And I definitely...
And you get tainted doing that day in, day out.
Yeah, and so that's part of it. I also think if they made weed legal, and this is my opinion, is what do you do with those taxes?
Oh, it goes in the slush fund, and the president will pay.
We can find something to do with the tax.
No problem. Actually, there's all kinds of things we could use it for. I mean, there's so many things that need. I'm back to infrastructure. I was talking to a friend. She's a political consultant. She invited me to lunch during the week, and very conservative. She's helped run a number of very conservative campaigns. I managed to broach the subject of infrastructure. John, you and I have talked about this quite a bit, about about the fact that we are put together with rubber bands, chewing gum, and paper clips. And
I actually found out today it's not quite that bad, but it's bad.
It's bad. And it also depends on where you're talking. Because there's some areas where it is that bad, and then some areas where there isn't. And
I was watching a show about it. There's some place on the East Coast, because of the amount of snow and other corrosives they use, that it really is. You're driving on roads that are really hold together with duct tape and hope.
Well, so many of these cities can't even afford to fix potholes anymore. They've given up. Detroit was a good example. That was one of the things that they stopped doing a long time ago. They can't afford to fix a pothole, so they're nothing but potholes. So anyway, back to the point. So marijuana, yes or no? Yes?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
It should absolutely be illegal.
Yeah.
I
my conservative friends are going to be yelling at me like don't know what I'm talking about, but I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say tax it and do it just like alcohol.
Well,
hey, we got a phone call.
In the case of Colorado, and I brought this up because teaching high school, my high school.
Hey, we got a phone call here. John, hang on a second.
Come on in.
Hey, Bob, it looks like that's you. Make sure your computer is turned off.
The sound.
The sound.
My sound's turned off.
Okay, we hear you.
Okay, good. I'm going to yell at you. Yes, you're right.
Good. Yeah, yell at me. Come on.
I just don't. I sit there when I was in college and watch these guys get stoned and sit there doing their tests and put their name down and their brain goes blank. It's a mood altering, and sometimes it can change your mood to a way you really don't want it changed to.
But isn't it their responsibility to use it properly? Is that any different than alcohol?
Well, that's true. Look what alcohol does on the highway.
Okay.
And how are we going to test if somebody is stoned on the highway?
They have tests for that already. That's not a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why kids do spice, because there is no valid test for spice at the moment.
Yeah.
And it's a short-acting smoked hallucinogen.
I haven't even heard of spice. I don't even know what it is.
Really?
So, yeah, I don't. I have a clue. But anyway, back to marijuana. Bob, there is a test for that. And when I look at the amount of dollars and cents that are spent enforcing these laws against marijuana, I go, just think where that money could go.
But at the same time, you'd have to set a limit, because you couldn't have, with the level of THC that's in marijuana at the moment. I don't want somebody operating a vehicle.
I don't either. It shouldn't be any different than alcohol.
Well, here's the thing.
You still with us, Bob? Hang in there. We're going to argue amongst ourselves. Go ahead, John.
Well, here's the thing. I actually know a little bit from. I have an acquaintance of mine was in the industry.
You mean medical marijuana industry?
Yeah, was in the medical marijuana industry.
Uh-huh. My shoulder hurts.
Yeah. Well, what the big thing is now is What's in the big thing now is something. It's what's it? It's ice or crack. Basically, what they do is they condense it. They basically condense it so that the thing has like 90% THC. That's something that definitely should not be legal. But you have something like regular weed, which has a higher content of THC than it did in the 60s,
Right.
but not as much as something like wax or crack.
Well, I have no idea, but I'll take your word for it.
That's good. Those are different drugs.
No, this actually,
They have
it's weed.
evaporatives that you can do, it's a smokeless deal, and it's basically 90% THC.
Okay, so Bob, you still there?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so let's keep the argument going. So why do you think? And you used your example when you were getting, because for those of you who don't know, this is Bob Conover on the phone. He's a licensed, there was a licensed geologist. He worked for the state of California for a long time. Very, very intelligent man, one of the most brightest people I know. But we don't always agree on everything. So let's carry this conversation out a little bit further. Now, you made the example of somebody in class taking a test. They were stoned. They wrote their name and walked out. I saw that without people being stoned doing that.
Well, that's true, but the thing I'm looking at, the total of it, is you've got police now searching for alcohol drivers. You've got road stops for that.
Right.
Are we going to now put our illustrious CHPs out there looking for people?
They're already doing it.
Bob, they're looking for people under the influence.
Yeah, they're already doing that.
And I've got to say to both of you, if you want to bring that up, using road signs to say report drunk drivers, I could have, done something stupid in the car, and somebody calls and reports me as a DUI. That's been something that I've considered a kind of a violation and an empowerment and violation of rights.
Well,
if you see somebody driving crazily erratic, I'm going to call 911 anyway.
Okay. Well, then
let me tell you something about that. I was driving back while working clear on the other side of Kettleman City on I-5. You know where that is.
he was working for the state. He was working for the state of California. Okay.
Right. And coming back one evening, it was dark. I was passed by a car going, let's say, in excess of what I was going, and they would wander off to the right side of the road into the dirt, wander right back, wander up to the left side, wandered into the oncoming lanes of I-5, and I called CHP. I think we were getting maybe Fresno on the 911 number. I followed that car from this north of Kettleman City to where the turnoff that goes to Tracy, what is it, 580 or something like that?
Yeah.
And that guy went all over the place, never saw CHP. I talked to 3 people on the CHP net. Never, ever did I get a responder or see a car.
Hey, Bob, you're getting a phone call.
I know I am. Could you hold on just a moment? That's my bride of 53 years.
You gotta love his ringtone, don't you?
Yeah.
Hey, we're talking about marijuana, and listen to his ringtone.
Area 51. They came, they saw, they had.
Anyway, that's our humor.
And we kept a couple of them. My biggest issue, and when the Colorado law, the legalization law went in, and kids are going, and I go, now here's the problem. You have to set a limit to be under the influence while driving.
Right.
You have to be 21 to consume.
Right.
So if you're under 18, it's not legal, and you'll be prosecuted.
Right.
And what it does, even though they're enforced, now it's very black and white. There's a possession, a ticket, They have some groundwork for that. But once it's legal, then you have an entire industry that's built.
Right.
Because you'll have to be, there'll be attorneys that specialize in marijuana DUI.
They're there. They're already there. Yeah, you're right.
Oh, the industry is forming. There was a national,
putting it together.
In advance of marijuana becoming legal nationally, there was a huge agro business that was ready to go into the marijuana business big time.
Right. Yeah. They're still ready. I mean, should somehow the opinion of we've spent enough money trying to enforce it, we're losing this war, let's turn around and just like we did in Prohibition, and you got to go back and study that, but let's look at that situation. All we've done is we've created cartels, we've helped gangs, everything negative that you can think of, we've been helping by enforcing these particular laws on marijuana.
I'll give you an example, all right? And it's a very far-fetched example, but I read just this afternoon that even though Google Glasses has it's got a prohibition against using Google Glasses for pornography.
Oh, okay.
Somebody has already done it.
They've already figured out how to break it.
And you can watch it on YouTube.
You know, that's funny.
Any advancement is, I mean, any media is always one of the very first thing is going to be pornography. We like to do that. Hey, and we don't have to leave this, but if you want to get into a really good one, we can talk about Anthony Weiner anytime you want.
Can you believe that nitwit? Oh my God!
I mean, the thought. I mean, it's bad enough. It's bad enough that the former governor, he's running for the comptroller.
Yeah.
But this guy didn't stop sexting when he resigned from Congress.
And his wife is standing there going, "Oh, I forgive him. He's the greatest guy." What did he do? Buy her somewhere? I mean, I never.
Actually, the best argument I could find was that, she really is of the best and brightest. And part of it is her political aspirations, but the guy's just a total zero loser.
Wait. Political aspirations. Wouldn't the best political move to dump his ass?
Yeah. Well,
politically, that's the best PR.
And why she didn't, and ultimately, she's got all the chips in the win or lose. But the people of New York, people in cities are crazy, but they're not gonna. No.
Yeah, well, I don't know. It just that interview that went on today with him and her and the whole thing was just something out of the Twilight Zone. So.
Well,
hey Bob, you're still on the phone here. Did you have anything more you wanted to add? We're going to move off of marijuana and there's something else.
Yeah, I got something else for you guys to ponder, if you don't mind.
Let's do that. Give me a ponder.
Come on, Bob.
The devaluation of the American dollar as the standard reserve currency of the world.
China's been trying to do it.
Yeah, well, we know that's where they're trying to make the yen the thing, right?
Yeah, and what would that do when they start devaluate? I wish I could speak. United States dollar.
and I go ahead, Bob.
No, that was it.
Not a conspiracy theory at all, but the Bush administration had on the table, and there is a model for implementing the Amero. If the world goes off, well, what's oil going to cost us if oil goes off dollars to the barrel?
Right.
All right. It's scary, but unless we do something to bolster our economy and get people some jobs and take a economic position in the world like we formerly had and go back to making big things and doing R&D here and going and really mining the wealth of the American genius, which led the world for an entire century. I think you're going to end up with world currencies, or you're going to end up with continental currencies. Because the economy is going that way.
It's interesting you say that, because if you look at Europe on the euro, they're starting to now say, and you've got some countries that are on their euros are going, maybe this wasn't the smartest thing for us to do. They're having some issues with it. Now, I'm not the economist, you are, so maybe you can explain that a little bit more, but that's what I'm being told.
Well, what it actually did was it put Germany in the driver's seat.
Okay.
Britain's economy is just a bust.
Well, they didn't go on the euro.
No, they never did.
No.
They wanted to remain independent, and probably not a bad idea. The Germans are bailing everybody out because they are the one industrial country that makes money. I mean, they are a player.
Right.
France, not so much. Britain, I mean, the euro was. I'm not saying that the euro would be a good idea. The problem of it is the Canadian dollar is still right on the borderline. I mean, there are a lot of
We're almost even.
The pound is about $1.50, $1.25.
Yeah.
I didn't look this morning.
$1.56.
$1.56. Okay.
So I mean, the issue of it is that China's not playing by the rules. And let me suggest this. This is happening everywhere, and maybe the revolution is coming, because there are so many. The Chinese don't want to play by the previous economic rules. Okay, they want to break that world model of the way we did business, and they've lent us a ton of money, and they've lent a ton of money to everybody. I mean, they in many ways are doing foreign aid at a level that we used to do, except that they're much more drastic in their conditions for a loan. They want, and they will extract.
They would like their money back. What was that, Bob?
I said, don't you guys think that we're making a huge mistake by running the printing presses and printing dollars that are worthless right now?
Well, we've been doing it for a really long time, Bob. At the moment, I'm really worried about changing the head of the Fed and who they're talking about changing it to.
Yeah, that's an issue, and my biggest worry, I think we're going to be facing inflation at a very serious rate here, and I don't have a clue where we go to try to stem that, but I think it's going to happen.
And I have to go back to we need to bring manufacturing back to the United States, or find something to take its place, which is when John Boehner says we should be measured by the laws we repeal, not by the laws we pass. That is a complete reversal in the American political mindset over the last 213, 14 years, whatever it's been.
You'll never.
Yeah.
So you'll never be able to, unfortunately, get manufacturing back to what it was. When to build a new building and environmental impact fees, you've got all this stuff. Building, unfortunately, manufacturing this country will never resume just because of all the hassle they have to do it.
So your point is we're regulated to death, and you feel that regulations is partly to blame for what's happened.
I think you can over-regulate. I also think you can under-regulate. I think the thing is you got to find the happy medium, and right now I think the regulation is just too much.
So we're too extreme. I happen to agree with you.
But that's my opinion.
No,
my input on that is I don't know that I argue that point. But then you have to look at the situations about, Perry going to California and New York and trying to elicit businesses to come to Texas, and then the fertilizer plant blows up because it's unregulated, and wipes out a city and kills 7 people or 14 people.
Never mind that it has been operating as a fertilizer plant for 80 years and did just fine. Had one accident, and you just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, but it was a battery cast. So was Bhopal in India until the gas got out and killed how many tens
well,
of thousands.
Now that was, you're absolutely right. That one was a major. You look at what happened in the Gulf.
Japanese nuclear restrictions at Fukushima.
Yeah,
because Fukushima's not done yet. The trash is hitting the West Coast still. But Jonathan, I have to say to you, on one hand, you started out back a minute ago saying you thought the job of government was to regulate, and then now you're saying that they regulate too much.
Well, I do believe that the government's job is to provide a framework, but I do think the framework can be too restrictive. I think there's a balance in providing fairness with safety, provide an economic boon without letting it be, laissez-faire. And I realize it's not an easy thing to do. But
I agree with you. It is not. Regulation is a difficult thing to do. EPA standards, but there are things like, do you allow people to live in apartments with mold, which is, not good for their health.
No, it's not good for their health.
And Jonathan, you've never lived in a slum,
no,
and couldn't afford to get out of it. I have this unrealistic point of view that in the greatest country in the world, by the 2000s and the new millennium, that we would have rose our standard of living for all people, and we're not.
No,
we're
not.
I also never said that some of the overregulation is bad. When it comes to health and it comes to the environment, I may think it's restrictive for business, but definitely doesn't mean it's bad.
Well, but here, let me give you a level of what is lunacy. Okay, when I was in Sacramento and doing the harness races, you guys never came.
Yes, we did. Yes,
okay,
we did.
Then you have a Capital Racing 16-ounce pint glass.
Yes.
All right. I had to change the pint glass because there is like one iota of lead in that paint. And because of that, you would have to hold that glass in your hand 24/7 until you were 80 years old.
And lick your finger at every time. Yeah.
A minuscule chance of getting any form of lead poisoning.
Let me guess. You got the glasses from China.
Oh, no. They were made in Oakland.
No, I don't believe that for a minute.
They're painted. No, it's the greatest. I don't know if they do anymore. But the whole thing was done in Oakland by a company called American Glass. And they warehoused them and didn't charge me for them until I took delivery. It was the greatest deal on the planet. Anyway,
Bob,
they're probably. I still have a case.
Good.
If nothing else, that would be the legacy of my 12 years.
So what you do is, for every glass you give out, hand them a rubber hospital glove to go with it, and then you're fine.
Yeah.
Okay. Bob, what's your point? You had something else going on, Bob. Did we answer your question, or did we get so far off?
But I want to say I drank out of those glasses when I was the uplink operator at Cal Expo harness racing.
Yeah.
I knew I heard that voice before.
But anyway,
I knew it. And it was a particular event where I had to talk to you because they were having something go on. You usually talk to Chris.
Yeah. So, but the thing I wanted to bring up was the main thing I wanted is our society is becoming a society of takers, not makers. More people are now taking from the government as the handouts come out, and the makers who are making the payments on that are getting less.
But Bob, I've got to ask you: is that ratio really higher now than it was during the Great Society and when we created the dole? We have more people, but is the per capita larger? I mean, because God, when I was in college, man, anybody that wasn't white was it was scary.
Well,
it was scary.
6 minutes.
I don't sit there and read the Wall Street or look at all the stuff every day, but it kind of worries me if you study history in Germany, when you start evaluating things and what's going to happen to the dollar and what it's going to cost us for gas to travel, because we are a mobile society. And we don't live in condos and work in the bottom floor and go to the doctor on the second floor and have your house on the 15th floor, and you never walk out of the building.
Well,
but it sure seems that there's a trend to want to do that.
Well, that's the whole idea about.
We still have the cheapest gas in the world. Everybody else is paying minimum $3 to $5 a gallon more than we are.
Well, they drive their miles. If you're looking at England, a place like that, where we'll drive 40 miles to go to dinner, they drive 2 blocks if they drive, or they use mass transit.
They won't drive. They'll use rapid transit, walk, or take a bus.
Right.
That's it.
That's always the difference between rural and urban. I mean, that argument's always there. And you look at the size of the United States, and we're a whole different ball game compared to everybody else, other than maybe Russia and China.
That's why
and Australia. Aussies will go.
Aussies.
So they have rapid transit. They have trains. They have boats. They have ways in the metropolitan areas where, because I mean, you live in New York, Bob. You're not going to drive your car. You're going to pay to have a garage to use your car when you go on holiday or you drive someplace. You don't use it to go to work. That's very much the California model, and it has been the California model.
Well, that's right, and you're both right. It is the model in California. There's people in New York that have never had a driver's license ever. I mean, they never needed it.
How could they register to vote, Rob?
Oh, damn. I guess they have to get an actual ID card, John.
Oh, boy.
God. I'm disappointed. I'm so sad with Australia. Jeez. No,
What do you mean?
You didn't have to show ID to vote in Australia. That breaks my heart.
No. Well, you've got to be on the rolls, man. You got to be registered.
But now you got a guy that also figured out that even though he's living in Australia, he's living in Anaheim at the same time.
Mate, they just threw the PM out that they put in instead of Rudd, and they put Rudd back in instead of the phony redhead river.
Jeez, I don't care. Let's pick one more thing to talk about here.
I would like to, if I made and Bob, I extend this to you because I know you'd like it. Last Sunday, I had the opportunity to go to the Peterson Automotive Museum in Los Angeles and go on the vault tour and see 165 cars that were not on display. Folks,
what was that all about?
If you're in LA, this is something you got. If you're any kind of a car nut, you gotta go to the Peterson.
Yeah,
it is amazing.
It is big, yeah.
Huh.
I mean, the great 35-foot long 1937 Rolls-Royce Phaeton. I mean, the penultimate. I mean, God, that was sitting down in the vault, and let's see, 3 Steve McQueen vehicles, including his Indian. Well worth it. It makes LA almost worth it.
Hey, by the way, John, you've been out of the Sacramento loop a little bit. Guess what? We're going to get a new car museum in Sacramento.
Well, you have one very nice car museum, a decent car museum.
We did it on site show. One of our shows, you go to those shows, you can see the Sacramento Car Museum, and they're in desperate need of a better facility, and they found a whale. I shouldn't use that term. They found a benefactor to actually build them a better location, a better building, maybe they get more cars.
Well, the thing of it was, keep it close to the train museum, because the train museum is world class.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know where they're going to put it, but they did find a benefactor to help, and because the building's very, very worn, and it's also in a very hard location to find. It's basically right under the 80-50 corridor situation.
It's across from the Crocker and south of Raleigh Field, and
yeah, kind of. It's more in the industrial spot there where Chevron is. So. Okay, so we talked about cars. We talked about all kinds of things. We're actually coming down to our 1 hour. Hey, Bob. We might have to have you on every week. You do a great job. You got to keep me in check.
Bring your epee and foil.
Yeah, because I've got all kinds of things on this list I want to bring up next week too, because great ways of starting arguments. So anyway, Bob, thanks for calling. I appreciate it. We'll catch you next time. Talk to you later. John, I want to thank you very much for once again being with Opinion versus Opinion. Jonathan Charney, our producer, thank you very much for doing a great job. Hey, folks, if you got to watch us live, good on you. And if you want to, go look at the archives. You can watch this show later. Thank you very much.
Sent us $5.
And always hit that donate button. Hit that donate button. Button. Thanks, John, for reminding me about that. Thank you, guys. We'll see you next time. Bye.